Hey, Emma back with episode number 3. We are continuing the theme of growing up in a cult from episode number 2, except for now we're going to get a little down and dirty, okay? A couple more interesting facts about the kind of life I lived is just to show the big difference between my life and, I guess I could say, the rest of the world's life. And just a quick disclaimer, is going to be PG, so. Whew. All right, so first quick comparison I want to make is that my parents did have a computer. I don't remember exactly when they got it. I was pretty young, maybe like 2003, somewhere around there. It was strictly for doing the books. My dad had a couple of his own businesses. My mom had graduated as an accountant from college, so naturally that was her thing. So yeah, the books was all that they used the computer for. I didn't even turn it on or touch it or anything until I was about 12 years old. And my dad had asked me to turn it on for him. He was outside and it takes a little while to boot up. And I just remember being so afraid to touch it because from where I come from, that was like kind of a magical thing. Like, it was just so rare. Technology was so rare that I was super nervous. I was worried that something bad was going to happen. But once I hit that on button, that was it. I was a technology guru, if that's even possible, a conservative lifestyle. But for my family, I was really good with computers, technology, and things like that. So I think I was 14 by the time I started actually using it and doing stuff for my parents on it. My mom had her own little business, which I believe I spoke about in one of the earlier episodes. Do, by the way, go ahead and watch those first. If this is the first one you've seen, go back, watch 1 and 2. It's going to help. Each one's going to make a lot more sense if you watch them in a row. So just a quick, sorry, gotta adjust. So, okay, so this one's going to be hard, okay? I'm sorry. I'm just going to disclaim here that this is going to be the tough one. So bear with me. Might go slow. But anyways, technology just seemed to click with me. I understood it. I quickly learned, and I had absolutely no training. Everything was completely trial and error, figuring things out. It just made sense to me. So I quickly became the person everyone called on when their stuff broke down. My mom or dad would be like, Emma, the computer's not working, the printer's not working. And my dad especially, he was not technologically advanced. So he could do stuff with a computer that I was like, what? How did you get to this point? So I was always fixing that stuff for him, and I loved it. It gave me kind of a sense of purpose that I could do something that nobody else could do. Granted, it wasn't much compared to the grand scheme, but for my family, it was a lot, and it was kind of fun, just having that special thing that I knew I was really good at that nobody else was. So it did make me feel a little special. And so then, moving on, I wish I was doing an interview version so you guys could ask me questions, because I imagine at this point you've got a million questions going through your head. Lifestyle, there's just so many things. There's so many things I wish I could relay, emotional mindset things, because it's very difficult to describe. As you can, I'm sure, imagine, it's hard to imagine my lifestyle, but it's because of that fact. It's hard for me to explain it because I know that what I say may not make sense. So if you have any questions, just post me a comment or message me. I would love to chat about it, especially if you by chance have similar background or anything like that. I really like finding people who do understand where I came from and what it feels like. It's really nice to connect. So definitely don't hesitate to contact me on social media or leave a comment here if you see this video on YouTube. Okay, moving on. Oh my gosh, I wrote down a list of things I wanted to mention, and I kind of got exhausted because I just forgot. I guess we can talk about work and recreation. This lifestyle was completely work-based. There was no fun in games and playtime. My family in particular, my dad loved to have fun more than he loved to work, which was somewhat of a downside to him, but I'm very grateful for it because it balanced out the crazy work-only kind of lifestyle that they had. Granted, we did a lot of things everyone else would not have approved of if they had known, but I'm personally very glad because I got to experience a lot of things that most of them never would have experienced. I know I didn't experience that much, but at least it was more than they got to experience. So my dad loved taking us to museums, you know, history or science, attractions like natural features. I've been to a lighthouse, and we would go swimming at the lake once a year, maybe sometimes twice. I rode on a jet ski. That is something I did and loved it. It was like full throttle. I like all the way. I loved riding the jet ski. But again, that was another thing that was like super hush hush because nobody knew that we did that. I think over time some people found out, but I think we invited certain ones who we knew we could trust along. Anyways, I've never been to a fair, never been to a movie theater, never been to a bar, which I'm not really, still haven't. I'm not particularly fond of going to one or anything like that, but yeah, never been to any kind of, I really just haven't done that much. My boyfriend loves taking me places because most of the time I've never experienced before, never done it before, so it's a real thrill for him to be able to show me everything for the first time. It's definitely a special part in our relationship. Anyways, I kind of spilled the beans. Yes, I do have a boyfriend. Never lived in the city, grew up entirely country, surrounded by farmland. You know, Wisconsin's known for its cheese and its cornfields and its barns, dairy farms. Everything's gravel roads over there, everything except for the super, super major highways. Everything's gravel. That was the weirdest thing here is even the back roads here in Oregon everything's paved. I mean, way up in the mountains, like the stuff you'd think like no one drives out here are still paved. That was so weird. I think I've been on a gravel road 3 times in the last 1.5 years, and that was partly because of work took me there. The job that I'd had took me there. So yeah, completely different. Wisconsin is flat, super flat. So that's one thing I love about with Oregon is all the mountains, and you know, we've got all the different landscapes. We've got the beach. We definitely not have any beach over there. The beach that we did have would have been bordering Lake Michigan and Lake Superior, but you know, they were usually rocky and the water was freaking cold. So not exactly the same. Now, I'm going to mention this. I don't know if anyone knows about it, but I love airplanes personally, and that love was instilled by my dad. He loved airplanes, helicopters in particular. And it happens to be, we live 2.5 hours from the world's largest air show, EAA AirVenture Oshkosh. If you're a plane enthusiast, you will know what I'm talking about. Okay, this is a worldwide event, literally. It's huge. If you can imagine the most planes and the most plane lovers in one place, that's what it would be. So my dad would I went a total of 5 times. Once when I was really young, had a plane ride. Oh, so cool. And actually a helicopter ride too, Bell 47, no doors. Still haven't ridden a P-51, but that's definitely a life goal. Or a B-17, that would work too. So my dad would take our family to this air show. Now, it was a really expensive air show, and having 8 kids wasn't exactly what my parents could do. So we had some friends outside of the cult who would supply us with tickets. They'd always get a bunch of extra tickets because they were they're part of the show, and they would give them to us. So we got to go a total of 5 times over that span, and that was heaven on earth to me. I loved airplanes, and I loved all things airplane, and the rest of the year, I'd literally put myself to sleep by dreaming about being an airshow pilot, being in a place like that, literally. I mean, I knew all the pilots, I knew all their planes, I knew all their stories. I was loving being a photographer. I had videos and photos of all of them. It was just the best day, sometimes days, of the year, like legit. I mean, even though I'm not quite, I don't remember all that as well. You know, when you're a kid, you tend to remember those things way better. But like a lot of people know sports and the players and who's who and when's when. That's what I knew about airplanes and air shows. I probably knew way too much. But it was It was almost my identity for a little bit. It was the only thing I could love without getting in trouble for. I could know about, and I could remember for the rest of the year that was something different. It was not a part of the cult. It was worldly. It was normal. It was out there. It was something new. It was something really, really cool. So that was definitely a highlight of my life. I cherish those memories like with all of my heart. The photos I have and the souvenirs, things like that, they mean so much to me. And I just remember the memories, and I can just feel the adrenaline rising at the sound when I hear certain plane sounds. I'm definitely, even though I live in Oregon, 2,000 miles away, I'm definitely going back as often as I can. That being said, let's move on to something a little more interesting. Okay, so I promised you in the last episode I was going to talk more about the discipline thing because I need to say it for myself. I know it's probably not the prettiest thing to hear, but I need to say it. I need to get it over with. And yes, the first time I talk about it, I'm telling the whole world, but that's just me. A little bit of an extrovert. So I guess we're going to move into that next. No, I want to talk about my brother next. My little brother passed away when he was 2.5 years old. I was 15 years old. And he accidentally pulled a cup of hot tea down onto him. So thankfully it was just water. It wasn't coffee or anything dangerous. He was burned pretty good, front, back of his body, like almost entire torso, arm, under area, back. And I think his legs were the only thing that were left untouched. And 4 days later, we woke up and he was gone. We were treating him at home because in that place, doctors were definitely discouraged, and they weren't health crazy. It was my mom was actually way more health conscious than any of the rest of them, but they definitely did not go to the hospital unless absolutely totally necessary. Just so you know, though, before you get all upset at me, we did have a doctor monitoring what would be yesterday's equivalent of a country doctor. He didn't necessarily do house calls unless it was super important, but we did have him monitoring him, and also a specialist from a burn center in a very major city a couple hours away. He was doing great. There was no dehydration. There was no infections. Seemed to be healing. The burns were healing very well. On and on and on, but he still passed away. And the only thing that they could say from the autopsy, they had to come up with, obviously a cause of death, was that it was adrenal exhaustion, which pretty much means that he was too young, too small, too weak to handle such a major trauma to his little body. That's not even the sad part. The sad part is that all of those who were supposed to be loving us, supporting us, being there for us, saw it as punishment for our family. They did not offer any kind of support or comfort or anything. They did their duty in making a funeral and bringing food for the few relatives that were going to come, that were able to come out. It was obviously short notice. He was not embalmed, and the autopsy was not completely finished, so it was not an open casket. He needed to be buried quickly, in other words. So the funeral was 2 days after he died. Yeah, his burial, whatever. We can't exactly call what we had a funeral, but I will and I just remember none of our family cried that day. Not visibly anyways. Not when we were around anyone. We were completely like it was another day. We were in shock, I think, because it was so not expected. I mean, death is always one of those things that you go, it's not really going to happen to us. You just can't imagine it happening to you or your family. So when it happens, you're just like, did this really happen? It was so sudden. I mean, we all thought he was getting better and getting better so well. This was so not expected. We were in total shock. And my mom's health had been waning for a couple years before that, and she was, not terribly capable of taking care of us. So me and my next younger sister did all the housework. We helped the children with their school. We pretty much ran the house for her. And that was kind of difficult with him being that particular little brother because me and my sister had pretty much raised him. I mean, we potty trained him. We taught him to eat, eat on his own. Every morning about 4 o'clock, he'd crawl in bed with me, usually soaking wet from potty training. And I'd get up and I'd change him, and then I'd take him to bed with me, which had another little brother sleeping with me at the same time. So every morning I could always count on him crawling in bed with me, his cute little pajamas that they were ones I had made him. And just so many little things that made him special. His name was Jeremiah Octavian. His middle name was Octavian because he was the 8th baby, and my dad always wanted someone named Octavian or Octavius, so that's his middle name. He was the sweetest little boy, and so precious. He was learning to talk. He actually talked really well. And the cute thing was he has a hard time saying all of me and my siblings' names, so we call everyone Nana. Everybody was Nana, and he was the only child to do that. So it was really special. And yeah, 2.5 years old. May 8th was his, no, excuse me, that was the day he was burned. May 12th was the day he passed away. So yeah, that was really big in our lives. And the hardest thing was that we had no support. And I think I mentioned this, but the church family, the cult, they saw it as punishment for our family on my parents, because my parents were under the discipline and God was disciplining us and he was making it harder so we would bow down to his will, which ended up being their will, not his will. And that was definitely the hardest part, because if we showed any kind of sorrow or remorse or, shamed, any kind of shame, then they would see it as points on their side. They'd be like, "Who? See? Yeah," point the finger kind of thing. And so I remember the funeral, none of us cried. It was just we went through it. We went home and we spent some time with relatives, which happened to be we'd never seen before. We had seen my grandparents, but both my uncles came, and one of my uncle's families, we hadn't seen them before. My parents had shown me to them when I was a baby, but I didn't remember that before they had left Oregon. But other than that, I'd never seen them or anything before, so it was super special. Honestly, that really helped us get through it because they were there. We had some kind of excitement. We had some kind of something to be happy about. Stayed with us for a few days. It was just, my grandparents happened to be there. They were visiting for a week when this happened. So they were there before he died. And that was so wonderful. I mean, it was definitely nothing was a coincidence. God was definitely watching over us. And yeah, so he's buried in Wisconsin, which I'm kind of sad about because he is buried in the cult cemetery, which isn't really anything you can help. And trust me, if I could do something about that, I totally would. I don't care what it would cost me. I would do something about that. But I can't, at least for now, so that's okay. I wish I had a little bit more light in here. I like my video. As a videographer, I'm super concerned about my light, but I just didn't have ideal circumstances today to do this. Okay. Whew. Moving on. Yeah, you might want your tissues close by because this is kind of a sad one. I don't think I've even said the hardest part yet, and I'm avoiding it, and I shouldn't be. So the next thing to talk about, I'm sure you're probably wondering more about the discipline, and honestly, I can't remember if I talked about this in one of the other episodes, so forgive me. Maybe I'll just give a few more details about the discipline, my parents' discipline. They were under discipline for reasons that were not reasons you would expect. Usually you would think if that happened even in a church or anywhere, it would be for some kind of punishment, like maybe my parents snuck out and drank, or I don't know. I can't even think of something like super bad, like somebody committed adultery, something like actually bad. It was actually a sin to do. But nope, no. They were under discipline for financial reasons. My dad had a little bit of trouble with money and in managing it, and apparently they didn't like it. And also my parents' marriage was, I know every marriage can be rocky, but theirs was a little more than just rocky, which unfortunately the cult had caused it to be worse than it was. So this is all really hard, but it's the truth. So they were under this discipline, and this discipline meant we couldn't eat with people, and we couldn't associate, we couldn't go to people's houses, we couldn't speak to them people would say hi to us, but they'd avoid us at pretty much all costs, because if they were seen collaborating with the bad guys, then they might get put under discipline, etc., etc. So it's just vicious cycle of fear. I guess you're just gonna have to take my word because I have no idea what to compare this to or how to describe it. So my parents being under this discipline, it really, for one thing, it made our lives way worse in the sense of we were completely alone. We had no one there. Everyone thought bad of us. I mean, can you imagine if every single person you know in your life, like, looks down over their nose at you, despises you, points their finger, talks behind your back, you know, kind of turns the shoulder when you walk past? Like, can you imagine, like, every single person you know, everyone you count as family, everyone you count as friends, whether they're close or just acquaintances, everyone. Okay, so that's what I grew up under, almost, except for maybe the first 3-5 years that we were in that cult. So since I was at least 8 to 10 years old, okay? That's what I grew up under. That's what it was like. And I guess you probably won't blame me if you say I do hold a little bit of bitterness and anger over it because it just ruined us. It destroyed our family, and they did it on purpose. That's what the sad thing was. They have to break people down. They have to hurt them and make them, they have to destroy them, because if they don't, you'll figure out what's going on and you'll leave, or you'll tell the truth, or you'll take other people with you and things like that. It's time to talk about the discipline. The church in general believed in extremely strict child discipline. Like, okay, you think you guys know discipline? You don't. It wasn't anger-based, so I'm not comparing it to drunken fathers who beat their children with boards and break their bones. Okay, it wasn't like that. But 85% of all discipline that happened was entirely unnecessary because of a lack of knowledge of raising children and just understanding children for the truth. Okay, they read the wrong books. Let's just say that. They read the totally wrong books and listened to the wrong people. And I remember just sitting in church sometimes, listening to it be happening in some back room and just like cringing, like feeling it. I'm just like, who on earth, who's sort of normal, like just regular, they're not drunk or they're not altered in some way other than being brainwashed, can do this to a child? Like, I don't understand. Disciplining a child's one thing. Teaching them what right and wrong is. You know, teaching them what no means and keep them from rebelling and things like that. That's one thing. But literally beating the out of them every time they so much as not look at you the right way or don't respond with just the right words, that is not acceptable. And I do not think that God, discipline or no discipline, because, you know, their argument is, oh, the Bible says spank your children. I don't think he meant it in that way. He talked about for disobedience, for rebellion and foolishness. That was the only times that that kind of discipline was supposed to use. Not every single time you don't like that your child one-upped you or, you know, made you look embarrassed in front of other people. No, that's not acceptable. I'm sorry. And I still have, this is probably, honestly, despite my brother dying, beside my dad going to prison, all those things, this is the hardest thing. This is the thing that wakes me up at night and gives me panic attacks when I remember it. Because I can't forget the feelings. I can't forget the things that went through my mind. I can't forget the emotion. Like, I can put myself right now, if I wanted to, I could put myself right back in that situation. I could hear it. I could feel it, everything. And I listened to little kids, and I watched them get totally changed from who they were. You know, their personalities and, you know, who they were completely destroyed, completely changed, right into the little kid their parents wanted them to be. That is like the sickest thing on earth. Okay, that's even worse. I'd rather you kill the child than just destroy them and turn them to a useless human being, personally. I hope you don't get mad at me, but I'd rather them just die. Just let them die. Like, there's no point in being alive at that. There's no point in being alive then. For a child. Like, there's no point. Those parents do not deserve children. And I gotta be honest that a lot of the anger does go to my parents, because I remember cowering in a corner just begging God to let my sibling die, whoever it was, just let them die. God, make them just die. Make them die from their wounds, their hurts. Because then maybe, just maybe, my parents would wake up and see what they were doing. Like, oh my gosh, this really is bad. Like, just to give them something. I countless times sitting and just like, when is this going to end? Sometimes it'd go on for hours. Just horrible, horrible stuff. And I am so sorry if I'm being a little over the top. I am telling you guys the exact truth. There is no exaggeration here, okay? I am not exaggerating this. So I would just want you to know I'm not trying to make it worse than it sounds. I am saying exactly how it is. Exactly what went through my head. I remember. Trust me. And I hate being negative and like just filling the air with like negative energy, but sometimes you have to let the negative energy out to get rid of it. So that's what we're doing here. I just am certain. Yeah, that's it. I said, like, to this day, I will be laying in bed and I'll read an old journal, because I did keep, as a girl, most of the girls kept journals back then. And I did keep a journal, even though I was really bad at it. I was constantly forgetting to write in it, so finally I gave up. But for most of those years, I had kept a journal. And if I read it, I have to stop, because I actually go through legit, real panic attacks. Like, I hyperventilate, I like just lock up, and it's totally physical. It's totally physical. When I remember the sounds, the sights, the feels. I remember not being able to sit down for days because of that. But I'm not getting anyone in trouble here. I'm not trying to do that. I am merely trying to tell you guys the truth. That's all. I want you to know what it's really like, so that when you see next time. And honestly, my family's case was minor. We hardly suffered anything compared to what most people suffer. I mean, forced marriages, pedophiles, suicide, breaking up families, like literally breaking up families because part of the family wants to go this way, part of this doesn't want to, and they will come in and slice it right down the middle. Yeah, we didn't suffer like I know many of the people that I knew did. Personally did. And while this may shock you, this is totally normal. Guys, my story, when it comes to these conservative Christian cults, my story is not unusual. This is not like, oh my gosh, that's just like the worst one. Oh no, we didn't suffer nothing. As far as I know, none of my siblings or I were ever taken advantage of, and that was partly thanks to my mom. She was extremely protective. Like, I mean, extreme. We couldn't go out of her sight. Even when I got to like 16, 17, not out of her sight. I remember a couple times for like their anniversary, they left us with another couple who didn't have any children for a few hours, and she was just freaking out to leave us there. We weren't allowed to go with friends into another room in the house. You know, when I was young, I didn't understand. I mean, I wasn't allowed to play with boys, blah, 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 all kinds of stuff. Now I kind of get it. Even though she didn't really know that for sure, she felt it, and she knew that there were things that weren't right, and she was just terribly protective of us. But I know that a lot of others didn't fare as well as we did. So, I know as bad as this all sounds, this isn't even bad. I can't believe I'm saying that, but I'm serious. I have not suffered anything like what I know some specific people have. Horrible things that can't be undone and can't be forgotten. They leave a mark. Whew. Anyways, I told you it was PG, or maybe this is, I don't know if that's worse, but yeah, it's true. They were harboring pedophiles, and they punished the victims to keep them from taking it to court and being dealt with in a way that lined up with the law. That was really sad, and that just that ruined my mom's life when she learned about a lot of things she wished she hadn't learned about. She just wasn't really the same after that. It was crazy. She didn't have any personal friends. I had no personal friends. None of my family really had personal friends because, again, being under discipline for that long, no one really wanted to associate with you or be thought of as associating with you. So, yeah. So if you guys ever wonder why I might seem a little weird, a little messed up, now you know. Now you know. A little awkward, a little socially challenged, a little dumb, a little bit of all kinds of things. Anyways, we're moving on. Okay. Whew. So I congratulate you if you haven't hit the X button yet. As I said, about 98% of you guys watching this are going to actually believe me. Or at least that's what I get in public when I talk about certain things. I don't tell everything. This is a tell-all, okay? Most of the things I'm telling you guys I haven't told anyone before. No one before. So you're getting to hear the real, the raw. Okay. There's a lot of really other dirty stuff, but I don't want to say it because I would just be gossiping. It doesn't directly apply to my life. It was more applied to this cult. And I really hate gossip, and so I know I didn't have a huge amount to say, but it was really important for me to say that and just say that. Okay. I thank God every day that I did not get married into this cult. Because if my family had stayed into it, I would have. I mean, there would not have been other choice. You did not marry outside of this place. Like, it was not a question. So I am so grateful, because if I married into there, I would be at the mercy of my husband for the rest of my life. I'd go where he went. I'd do what he did, or said to do, etc. So I'm just so grateful that I did not marry into this. I would have been stuck and totally miserable. When I was a child, all I could dream about was leaving. There's another thing I gotta say about myself, which I don't think I've ever told anyone before. But I wrote a lot of imaginary suicide notes. A lot of them. Now, I was not suicidal, or I don't think I was. I don't really know what that means, but I don't think. I wouldn't have actually, I don't think I would have, I don't know, I can't say that for sure, if I had stayed in there any longer. As a kid, I'm talking 12, 14, real young. I wrote a lot of them because I hoped. The reason I wanted to do it wasn't because I really wanted to take my life. I wanted to live life. Are you kidding? I love life. I love abundance, and I love joy, and I love all kinds of things about this world. I wanted my parents to wake up to the fact of what was happening, where they were, and what they were doing. That's all I wanted. You can't tell me how many imaginary stories. My imagination was very strong. All my friends were imaginary, so I had all kinds of imaginary friends, imaginary adventures, imaginary everything. My entire life was imaginary. My daily life was imaginary, because everything I did, I imagined it was something different that I was doing just to get me through it. Because I'm not a monotony kind of person. I need action, I need adventure, I need new, I need change, I need colorful, I need bold. Everything that it wasn't. So I changed everything to be imaginary, to help me cope, to help me get through, to help me handle it and just last a little longer. And it's getting dark in here. Sorry about that, guys. I only use my phone because it takes smaller videos. It's just a little easier. So I wrote all these notes, and I just wished that I was brave enough to do something, even if it was just run away. Of course, when you're 14, running away isn't exactly an option, because you don't, for heaven's sake, you don't even know what's out there, what the world is like. I'm sorry, guys. This is a lot for one video. It's for me. This one's going to be longer. I know that my first one was 35, and the next one was 40, and this one's going to probably be an hour. Let's get through this. So I did that a lot because I was just begging and hoping. And what's funny, I dreaded my birthdays from about the age of 12 on. Completely dreaded my birthdays because I knew that when mealtime came around, my parents were going to have a prayer. And they were going to pray that I would join the church, in more or less words. Because at the age of 13, if you hadn't joined the church by the age of 13, you were definitely looked down upon, by adults and younger people. Because for some reason, age 13 was just, looking back, that seems like freaking young. But that was the age where people started to kind of look at you and wonder, hey, why aren't you becoming a part of this? And I just couldn't do it. From reading the kind of curriculum that we were allowed to read, I got a really wrong idea of what believing in God and coming to Jesus was all about. When I look back, I technically believed in him about the age of 5. Was converted at the age of 5. But I didn't know that because that's not what I was taught. I was taught a completely different thing. So I was 16 when I did the church thingy, the church way of doing it, and 18 when I legitimately joined the church. But I was only going through the motions. Nobody knew this, but me and my sister, well, my sister maybe not as much because we were doing it at the same time. We were only joining to get approval and to help our family move on, because us children not joining the church was also a ding against my parents. So we were kind of doing it for them too. We joined, but in our minds, we weren't joining anything. We were just going through the motions. In my mind, I was joining the Church of God because I didn't believe in one church is right. I believed that I could walk into any church that believed in God and I would be just fine. I would be the same as those people. I could worship like them. I could greet them. All those kind of things. Okay? I believe that. So me joining the church was me joining God's church. I wasn't joining their church. Oh, heck no. I went through the motions to make people happy and to make, just kind of stay in the group and, stay not... I was getting old enough that I could be punished. Anyways, so every birthday I dreaded it because my parents would pray. And I felt, even though I knew the truth, I still felt the shame because I was like there was something wrong with me. I was bad. If I died, I was going to go to hell, kind of thing. I dreaded every birthday up until we left. And I'll tell you, my 21st birthday, I had a party here in Oregon. All my relatives came. Most of them I'd never met before. It was the most amazing time. I had a first time I ever had a real birthday cake, real birthday party. The first one I'd ever had. I'd never had a birthday party before. It was so amazing. So that kind of made up for all those other horrible birthdays. Anyways, yes, I know it's terrible to dread birthdays as a kid, but I did. It was like I waited all year like, oh no, I'm getting another year older. I grit my teeth and just get through the day and just hope that everyone forgot I existed. Yeah, that's true. It's completely true. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not adding emotion, meaning extra emotion, like trying to make it worse. It is just telling you how it is, the facts. And there was something I was going to say about me and my sister. Oh, I can't remember it. Oh my goodness. Must not have been important. So, yeah, I dreaded my birthdays from about the age of 12 on. My family nobody really celebrated birthdays. There's no party or cake or candles. They definitely weren't allowed to sing happy birthday to you. That was a big, bad no-no. I don't know why, honestly. I do not know why. Other than that was a worldly thing to do. Like, where is the sense in that, please? Someone help me. Oh my gosh, this is like so much. I am really losing my train of thought here. I've got so much going through my head. I'm trying not to bring the memories back up. I'm trying really hard not to bring the feelings back up, because that's one thing I have a hard time forgetting is bad memories. But trying to like keep on and keep talking without bringing it up is really, really difficult. More difficult than I thought it'd be. Oh my goodness. Whew. Okay. So, that was another thing I dreaded. Actually, I lived under the shadow of it all year long because all my friends looked at me. Everyone looked at me, and those under me at that age. There was something wrong with us. We were bad. We weren't listening to God. We were defying him. We were being rebellious. And there is so much to say, guys. Like, I almost feel weird because I totally thought, oh yeah, I'm gonna just spit it out in like 30 minutes and it'll be over and this won't be bad. And here I am on episode 3 and I feel like I've hardly touched anything. I think I've gone through all the major points. There's so many little details that unless you literally lived in it wouldn't make sense. So I'm doing I'm trying, guys. You know what? I think we hit 40 minutes. I think that's it for episode 3. So thank you guys so much for hanging in here. Episode 3 of my story, What's It Really Like to Grow Up in a Cult. I hope you guys enjoyed, and please don't forget, drop me a comment if you have anything to say. Love to hear from you. Love to hear how it inspired you, and love to hear your story if you have something that you want to say too. So more to come in episode 4.